is now called to order. My name is the Reverend Dr. Richard Paul. I am a member of the commission and serve as chair of the program committee. I will be presiding over the meeting today. My fellow commissioner, Ms. Sue Ellen Burns, also serves on the program committee.
Good morning.
The program committee is a standing committee of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks. Its main purposes are to hear about Chicago nominations for the National Register of Historic Places and public suggestions for new Chicago landmark designations. The committee will first review one nomination for listing on the National Register of Historic Places. After this, we will review 11 suggestions submitted for Chicago landmark designation. I'd like to give some background about the commission's review of National Register nominations. The National Register is a federal program that recognizes historically and architecturally significant properties. The commission gets a chance to review and comment on National Register nominations for Chicago properties because Chicago is a certified local government under the National Historic Preservation Act. The program committee will make a recommendation to the full commission on Chicago landmarks, and any commission vote recommending the nomination will be forwarded to the Illinois National Register Advisory Council. Today, we will be considering one National Register nomination. I will call the name of the person making the presentation. After they are done, I will ask if any members of the general public would like to speak. If any representatives for the property are present, please use this opportunity to say a few words should you desire. The National Registration nomination is for the J.P. Smith Shoe Company factory at 2023 West Erie. The nomination was prepared by Emily Ramsey. Emily Ramsey, are you present?
I'm actually Laura Ramsey. Emily could not be here today, so I'm doing it for her. But I am a partner in our firm, so I'm prepared to give the presentation instead.
I have.
Okay, great. Great. So as I just said, my name is Laura Ramsey, and I'm with Ramsey Historic Consultants in Chicago. And today I'm going to be presenting the National Register nomination for the J.P. Smith Shoe Company factory building in Chicago. Next slide. The building is located at the southeast corner of West Erie Street and North Franklin Street in the River North neighborhood of Chicago's Near North Side. Next slide. The J.P. Smith Shoe Company factory, designed by John H. Wagner, is locally significant under National Register Criterion C in the area of architecture as a rare and extant example of a late 19th century industrial loft that utilized exposed steel framing and a non-load bearing curtain wall system to maximize light and ventilation with exposed steel structural elements and large window openings. The building's design pushed this concept of the daylight factory to its structural limits in the era before reinforced concrete and steel sash windows revolutionized industrial design in the United States. The period of significance is 1897 to 1899, representing the years of completion for the original building and the compatible addition, which was also designed by Wagner. The building is designated an orange rated building in the Chicago Historic Resources Survey. The building at 223 West Erie served as headquarters and the first purpose-built factory for the J.P. Smith Shoe Company, one of the largest shoe manufacturers in Chicago through the mid-20th century. The company, incorporated in 1894, specialized in men's boots and fine welted shoes and sold under the trade names Smith Smart Shoes, British Walkers, and the Chicagoan shoe. The company's most successful shoe was the Dr. A. Reed cushion shoe shown in the advertisements you see here. In 1899, when the J.P. Smith Company began construction on an addition to their factory at 223 West Erie, the firm was second only to Florsheim's, producing 5,000 shoes a day and establishing a second department for high-end handmade shoes. Next slide. At the time that the J.P. Smith Shoe Company was incorporated, most industrial buildings in Chicago and throughout the country utilized mill construction, which relied on heavy timber structures and load-bearing masonry walls to produce factories that were fire-resistant and sturdy enough to withstand the weight and vibration of industrial machinery. Although steel frame skyscrapers were being erected in Chicago's downtown by the late 19th century, mill construction persisted in manufacturing because it could be completed quickly and cheaply while producing relatively fire-resistant factories. Next slide. By the late 1880s, industrial design had begun to evolve with new technologies and construction methods that were focused on a single goal, the exploitation of natural light and ventilation in structures with maximum span and strength. Steel was the ideal solution. It combined strength and elasticity that could stand up to the vibrations and weight of heavy machinery, and steel columns were lighter and smaller than wood or iron, allowing for larger window openings and freeing up valuable interior space. By the 1890s, American steel manufacturers had developed uniform and standard steel components for construction. However, because it was expensive and typically had to be protected with extensive fireproofing, it could not replace mill construction entirely. Consequently, industrial architects and engineers began combining steel framing with traditional mill construction to produce buildings that were strong, with more open interiors and larger window openings. One of the first of these hybrid industrial buildings to be constructed in Chicago was the Francis Building, which is no longer extant, designed by Treat and Foltz and completed in 1889, and you see it at the right of the slide. Although the structure was innovative, it was concealed from the exterior by traditional masonry walls. Outside of Chicago, some industrial designers began experimenting with hybrid buildings that left the steel framing exposed on the exterior, allowing for significantly larger window openings. Examples include the Veeder Manufacturing Company factory in East Berlin, Connecticut, built in 1898, you can see here at top left, and the Fisher Marble Company factory in New York City, built in 1905 and seen at bottom left. The architect for the J.P. Smith Shoe Company factory, John H. Wagner, arrived in Chicago around 1870. After working as a railroad agent and civil engineer by 1885, he was listed in city directories as an architect with offices on Dearborn Street. No records have been uncovered to indicate if Wagner obtained any formal architecture training or apprenticed with any architecture or engineering firms, but he was an early adopter of iron and steel frame construction methods in Chicago. Of the 9 buildings known to have been designed by Wagner between 1889 and 1897, nearly all were designed either partially or completely of steel construction. Examples of his work include the Flexible Shaft Company building on Ontario and LaSalle, completed in 1901 and seen at top left. The Jeffrey Building at 820 North Franklin Street, built in 1895 and seen at bottom left. And the E.W. Blatchford Building at Clinton and Fulton, built in 1901 and seen at bottom right. Next slide. Wagner's design for the J.P. Smith Shoe Company factory was his most innovative hybrid industrial building. He designed a structure with riveted steel I-beams produced by Carnegie Steel for the primary structure, supporting standard mill construction floors. The structure allowed for non-load-bearing curtain walls on all elevations along the exterior, noted as filler walls on this 1906 Sanborn map, which could be filled primarily with glazing. To further expand the window openings, Wagner left the vertical steel elements exposed on the exterior with bands of double-hung windows set on narrow brick spandrel panels. Next slide. Just 2 years after the factory opened, J.P. Smith commissioned Wagner to complete an addition that utilized the same construction method. The result was a 19th century industrial building that was instantly distinguishable from its neighbors and decidedly modern in appearance, with the steel structure clearly expressed. Next slide. By 1911, the company had outgrown its factory at 223 West Erie, and plans were made to construct a new, larger facility at the corner of North Sangamon Avenue and West Huron Street, west of the Chicago River. Designed by architect Horatio R. Wilson and completed in 1912, the building utilized the new technology of steel sash windows, reflecting the company's continued pursuit of maximizing natural light in its factories. The J.P. Smith Shoe Company plan at 671 North Sangamon was listed on the National Register in 1980. And now we'll take a quick tour of the building. So the building is located at the northwest corner of West Erie Street and North Franklin Street, directly east of the elevated line. This is the primary north elevation looking south across Erie Street. This is the west elevation looking east across Franklin Street. Next slide. The north and east elevations seen here looking southwest. Next slide. And the south and east elevation is looking northeast. Next slide. And here's a detail of the upper floors with exposed steel framing between the long bands of windows. Next slide. The first floor of the building houses large retail spaces with exposed structure and wood flooring. Next slide. The upper floors have been converted to offices with an open wood stair at the north end, original freight elevators at the south end, exposed structure and wood flooring. This is a typical office space. This one is on the second floor. Next slide. And another typical office space higher up on the seventh floor. Next slide. And then a typical office space showing the expanses of windows between the steel structure. Next slide. And finally, a detail of the steel structural elements, which are produced by Carnegie. Next slide. This National Register nomination is being pursued as part of a federal historic tax credit application for the building. The building is planned for an adaptive reuse for market rate housing by the owner, Concord Capital. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the nomination.
Commissioner, do you have any questions?
I don't.
No. Are there any public comments or questions? Yes, state your name.
Adam Nathan Joan, Director of Operations and Preservation Chicago. I'm actually here representing the organization. Ward Miller is typically here, but he's in Milwaukee today for the National Trust Conference. And we fully support the nomination of 223 West Erie for National Register nomination. We're very supportive of these types of industrial loft buildings. Turn of the century, they represent great opportunity for Chicago's future as well as a great window into its past. And the opportunity to nominate a building like this, increase awareness of this building type, I think is very important and helpful. Bigger picture, I think this building itself is a marvelous example. And we've been working at Preservation Chicago in 2021. In 2021, Westwood industrial buildings like this were actually Chicago's some of the most endangered, again, to raise awareness. So it's very, it's a great deal of pleasure or happiness when you see a building like this moving forward in a very positive way, as opposed to meeting the wrecking ball and being so.
Thank you.
The nomination.
Like to call for a vote?
Sure. How about a vote?
I would like to, I'm calling for it.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm a yes.
Sorry, I thought you were looking for a motion.
Thank you. Said call for a vote, so
Gotcha.
I followed the script. Okay, it passes. Thank you. The committee's recommendation for this nomination will be considered by the full commission at its regular monthly meeting on October 9th. The commission meeting will be held in person here at City Hall and is currently scheduled to take place in City Council chambers on the second floor. It will begin at 12:45 p.m. Details will be posted on the chicago.gov/CCL site. Please check before you attend, as location is subject to change. The commission's recommendation will afterwards be sent to the Illinois National Register Advisory Council, which reviews National Register nominations for the entire state. The program committee will now hear suggestions received by staff for new landmark designations since May 2025. I will announce each suggestion and call on the person who submitted it to identify themselves and the organization they represent, if any, and then make a brief statement regarding the suggestion. Please be aware that no decision concerning Chicago landmark designations will be made at today's meeting. First suggestion comes from Healing Temple Church of God at 1328-30 South Fairfield, and the suggestor is Mary Brown. Present.
Chairman Tolliver, I don't believe Ms. Brown is here. I have talked to her several times. She had been a little bit ill, but this suggestion came in a few months ago. We tried to get her on the last agenda, but I told her we would put her first here today, so.
Okay, thank you. The second one is Paradise Temple Church of God in Christ Congregation Shomrei Hadass, located at 11437-45 South Forest, Janice Helge.
Sure. Okay, thank you. And just go to that page. Yes, yes. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to present a second time. I did do hours and hours of research on this particular temple. Shamra Hadad is orange rated by the city of Chicago. And it does have potential for historic interest. In 1880, George Pullman started building his town of Pullman. In 1880, Simon Cohen came as a young Jewish immigrant to the west side of Chicago. In 1881, in January, the first family moved into Pullman, the town of Pullman. In 1881, Simon Cohen moved to Kensington and opened a saloon. He, by 1882, he had opened the first wholesale liquor company in Kensington. He was really progressive. He made his money because of the fact that he was across the tracks from the town of Pullman, which had only one bar in the Hotel Florence, and the workers did not go to that bar. When we present the history to visitors at the Pullman State Historic Site, they're always amazed that there weren't saloons in the town of Pullman. But George Pullman was adamant about that. As the area grew more popular with saloons about every other storefront, more and more Jewish families came into Kensington. What I discovered, which I thought was extremely interesting, is that these Jewish businessmen created the Roseland Business District. The Dutch people were far outnumbered. I researched and documented 53 Jewish-owned businesses in Roseland, thanks to this one congregation. We have the Home Store, which started in 1903. We have Raymond Levine, and the store lasted until the 2000s in Frankfurt. They started in 1919. And he was known for his clothing in such a way that many famous people, actors came to Levine to get the clothes from him. Samuel Lefkowitz, had the Roseland Fur Salon. He started a little bit later. We have Sam Fisher, who built a building, and he started in 1884. We have the Golden Eagle, which was owned by two men, and that started in 1887. I mean, it's just amazing. Joseph Leviton, who started in 1897. These people, Bach Brothers, 1900, and there were three of them. So these people all followed Samuel to the Kensington area. And when they had enough Jewish families, they formed their own synagogue. And it was the only synagogue south of 82nd Street in Chicago. They had rented a building
in the area. And then they moved to Michigan Avenue where they purchased the old Methodist Church. And in 1927, they decided to build their temple. They hired Harry L. Morse, who is a Chicago architect, born in Ohio, but lived in Chicago and worked in Chicago. And I don't know too much about him other than a few of the buildings that I was able to find on him. The building was finished in 1929. And it took them quite a few years to pay off the mortgage, but they celebrated that. What I found about a synagogue is that they don't really keep a lot of good records compared to other churches like the Lutherans or the Catholics. They don't do a good job. But this particular church was built on land in the first addition to Pullman. So there's another connection to Pullman there because the land was Pullman land. We think a second here. Okay, so from there, I guess the importance to me is that they built the Roseland community as far as businesses go. The men and the women who were opening all the different businesses, the congregation sadly closed in 1973 after over 73 years. And it's interesting because I've been told that it's rare that a synagogue lasts that long without combining with another synagogue. In 1974, this was sold to Paradise Temple, to Dr. James Watson, Paradise Temple Church of God. And he was connected with Bishop Lewis Henry Ford. And then Bishop Lang took over in 1991. Bishop Lang is there still, and he definitely supports the landmark status if it were to occur. And I guess I just have to ask if you have any questions.
I'd just like to make one clarification. That is Church of God in Christ. There is another denomination that is Church of God. So
Yes.
just for the record.
Yes, they had two different names. Under Dr. Watson, it was Paradise Temple Church of God, and this was his third location. And then for Bishop Lang, it's Paradise Temple Church of God. Again, I guess, okay.
But up there it's got COGIC,
Oh,
which means Church of God in Christ.
I believe that it is in there somewhere.
Okay, I
At
just
one
want to
point.
make that clear so
Yeah.
that when you move forward, the office knows there's a difference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, third is a residence located at 2175 West Eastwood. John and Matthew Scawthorne. Are they present? Yes, not.
I don't believe they are present, no, and this is their private residence.
All right, thank you. The fourth is another residence at 3222 West Washington. The suggestor is Denise Brewer. Is she present?
She is, yep,
She just got here on time. huh?
yep.
Man, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Denise Brewer. I apologize for being late. I had 4 matters across the street of the day.
You on time?
Well, I'm late. Yes,
2 images and describe.
okay, should I start?
Mhm.
Hi, as I said, my name is Denise Brewer. I'm the owner of this Greystone, which is located at 3222 West Washington. Unfortunately, I wish we had the picture of the house that was just demolished. It was a wonderful stone Greystone that is part of that block of the Washington Street in Chicago, encompassing a bunch of Greystones and many mansions and the likes. I was told from a historical basis that it was once housed most of the physicians African-American physicians who were, in residence here at Providence Hospital and various other places. I'm still doing the research to determine to name them. The individual, unfortunately, you can't have, there's two houses from me, that there's a mini mansion there. The guy that owned that name was Vernon Ford. He, unfortunately, I just realized, unfortunately, he just passed, but this particular block encompasses two streets, 3200 block and the 3300 block. And it also leads into the Garfield Park, park and the conservatory. It is currently vacant. We're wanting to designate it as a landmark because it holds significant value as one of the few places on the west side of Chicago that was home to doctors at that time was during the initial time. It was built around, I think, don't quote me, I think it was 1891 it was built. And we're seeking to have the designation. It's a lovely building. It had I think it has 5 fireplaces inside of it. We're trying to maintain the dignity of it and would love to have it as a landmark status. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Next question.
And this next slide is currently, we're in the process of rehabbing it. We're also, now that the house next to it is now gone, we're trying to secure that property also. The condition of it is that we're in the process of getting funding to, we have plans. We were trying to hold off on the plans until we get a better indication of whether this status will be granted so that we don't duplicate our efforts. And the lot, the one that you saw before, that lot is adjacent to it. We own that one also, the lot next to it, to the west of the property. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is Haven of Rest Fellowship Hall, 7914 South Chicago. And the suggestor is Annette Dewberry.
Right here.
You can talk from right there.
Oh, I think I need to.
Oh.
Yolanda, will you fix that?
Wow, you're in the right place.
Yes.
That's the chairman of our trustee board, Sister Yolanda. Thank you for having us here today. We present before you our vision for the restoration of the John L. Connor Fellowship Hall, preserving our community landmark. Presentation will include historical significance of the hall, assessment of restoration needs, restoration planning and process, community involvement, and future use. The sketch that you see before us was actually in the Chicago Tribune. It says, believe it or not, it's a restaurant. That's fine. Historical significance. Fellowship Hall began its existence as a 450-seat restaurant called Raphael's. June 24, 1928, Chicago Tribune published an article, believe it or not, Chicago restaurant, and I quote, but it is a restaurant which is being erected at the southeast corner of Stony Island Avenue and South Chicago Avenue at 79th Street on our own south side, end quote. The hall features a host of Middle Eastern influences. That's
Sorry to
okay, you're
interrupt,
good.
It's moving without me.
That's okay. That's okay. The hall features a host of Middle Eastern influences equal to that of its neighbors, the historic Regal Theater. Architect Frederick Stanton is responsible for this oriental design. The paper reported that the initial investment for the construction was $500,000. 1950, South Shore American Legion purchased the building, utilizing it for community events. 1964, Haven of Rest purchased the building, and we are still using it today. The Fellowship Hall was erected to provide a central location for community members to gather. Next slide. The hall features distinctive architectural elements that highlight its unique design and craftsmanship. Next slide. How did we get here? Like all churches and non-for-profit organizations, over the years, we have faced hard financial times. Currently, we need $2 million to completely restore and preserve the building. Next slide. We have had 2 different architects evaluate the building. Both said the structure is sound and all historical material is preserved during the restoration. more areas that have been damaged over the years by water. We have consulted with restoration and preservation specialists. Protecting the heritage and original character of the building is paramount. Next slide. We've submitted grant applications to Landmark, Illinois, City of Chicago Adopt the Landmark, Heritage Fund Preserving Black Churches, and we have our own restoration campaign in-house. Next slide. Phase 1 is structural issue to stop any further damage in the property. We need to restore the terracotta roof tile at the building perimeter, address additional leaks in the flat roof, and or other problems to ensure building safety and stability. Next slide. Upgrading the halls, heating, electrical, and plumbing systems to conduct standards while maintaining the building's authenticity. We will work closely with Haven's Green Team to reduce our carbon footprint, also controlled by our chairperson. The hall will serve as a venue, bringing to the south side a full banquet hall with commercial kitchen and parking. Next slide. Regular community meetings will continue to be held. Educational programs will utilize the space to provide learning opportunities for all ages. Next slide. Our ultimate goal is architectural preservation, community revitalization, symbol of unity. Thank you all for having us today. Are there any questions?
Yes, not. You're so comprehensive.
Well, our pastor thanks you. Thank you, Brady.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 6, near north multiple properties. 157 East Ohio, etc. Roman Moore.
Mr. Moore did tell me he was not able to be here, but he has suggested this particular building in the near north for its terracotta. And then he did include multiple other buildings throughout the near north side with all of those addresses. So, and they were all in your packet of images, so.
You have your work cut out for us.
Ask her.
Okay. The Amanda, 50 East Chicago, Preservation Chicago. Go ahead.
Adam Nathan, Showman Preservation Chicago, standing in for Lord Miller. I'd like to introduce Vicky Lee, who's returned to us as a research associate. She worked with us last summer as an intern. She's graduated now with a historic preservation degree. We're very happy to have her on board. And she is actually responsible for churning out these 4 landmark suggestions in rapid time and lots of wonderful information. Amanda Apartments at 56 to 60 East Chicago Avenue. It's a well-known building. It's in the very sort of high-end neighborhood. It's been vacant for many years. We've been working with the owner, an older gentleman, the board member has been working with an older gentleman who was hoping to sell the property. We're hoping to have it restored and landmarked as part of that process. Of course, because of the nature of the location, vacant building in this neighborhood is always subject to demolition and reconstruction. And the building does need some work, but it's a very beautiful building and it's really an appropriate density for this neighborhood. And it served a very interesting sort of role in the community over the years. It was built in between 1898 and 1900. And the architect is Robert Skilter Smith. And what's one of the interesting things about this building, in addition to its physical appearance, that classical Beaux-Arts style and lovely ornamentation and yellow brick, is that the entrepreneur of this building was a woman, which was pretty unusual at the turn of the last century, which is a wonderful way to showcase the contribution of women to Chicago's history, especially in its early years, especially when it was really not the norm. And I think that, and lastly, I would just say that, of course, the preservation of this building is actually building court. We've been working very close with the owner and the at building court to help to sort of stabilize the building. The board has actually brought potential buyers through the building who expressed interest. So we're hoping that combination of the development community slowing down the building court's interest in pushing things along. There is receiver action has been engaged to stabilize the hole in the roof, which is going to be stabilized. But certainly this building we believe is would be meet criteria for Chicago landmark designation and certainly assist the effort towards renovation and restoration and prevent any possibility for demolition.
Thank you. The next one is South Park Terrace Apartments, 6116 through 34 South King Drive, Preservation, Chicago.
Thank you again, South Park Terrace Apartments at 6116 through 6134 South Martin Luther King Junior Drive in Washington Park. It was built in 1905. The architect is Harry Hale Waterman. And it's really an amazing building. It was designed by an associate of Frank Lloyd Wright. It has a very telltale sort of prairie style ornament. And it recalls Frank Lloyd Wright's Francisco Terrace Apartments. At one point it was providing much needed affordable housing near Washington Park. And also it appeared in Halle Berry's home in the 1996 film Losing Isaiah. More recently, it has suffered from some deferred maintenance. There was a fire that you can see that occurred in one of the units. It was in building court. I believe some of the tenants were evicted, or there was a process of eviction because of unsafe conditions. This is a building that really should be protected, renovated, put back in use as affordable housing in Washington Park. It really has extraordinary the scale and the ornamentation. It's really a benefit to the community, and we very much like to see it put back in service. Then a landmark designation would assist in that effort.
Thank you. The next one is St. Mark Roman Catholic Church, 1048 North Campbell.
Thank you again, Adam Nate Schoen, Preservation of Chicago. St. Mark's Roman Catholic Church is a campus on the west side and in Humboldt, or northwest side in Humboldt Park. It was established in 1894. St. Mark's Parish originally served an English-speaking Polish Catholic community, but since the 1960s has become really the center of Humboldt Park Spanish-speaking Latino and Puerto Rican Catholic community. And it was only closed in 2022, so very, very recent, which is interesting because of the scale and the size and strength of that community, who's a neighborhood. The campus includes 3 buildings. The mid-century modern church is really pretty incredible. Ariel Laurie designed the windows and the interior. The exterior is really cool, but the interior is really extraordinary. There are photos online, and if you ever get a chance to tour the building, I highly encourage you because it's really a very special space. Tremendous opportunities for adaptive reuse within that space as some sort of a community center or something along those lines. That said, because of the size of the church, it's very much targeted for demolition and new construction. The parish building is the oldest building on the campus. It was designed in I would say 1890. I don't know the date, but I say the late 1890s. 1890. Well, I'm not sure of the date, but the late 1890s. Parish building is very pretty, could be adaptively reused for residential. It seems very easy. Again, if it was protected against demolition and new construction. And the school is also really a beautiful building, and I believe it's currently occupied, unfortunately, by a charter who was threatened with closure, but there was a public process and CPS relented. It remains open and operating as a charter school, again, very important. And old schools make wonderful schools, contemporary schools. Again, this property, there is a vacant parcel, which would be an ideal development site. But if this campus were to be landmarked, it would encourage a developer to reuse that which is reusable and build new construction on a parking lot. It could be a really dynamic sort of for the Humboldt Park community also in the future.
The next one is Western Industrial Buildings, 4200 through 4500 Southwestern Avenue.
Thank you. And this is our fourth suggestion for landmarks. Western Avenue industrial buildings. There's a stretch about 3 blocks on Southwestern. It's a wonderful collection of early 20th century industrial buildings. They range in scale from a 2-story one you see there some of the sort of larger 3 and 4 story buildings. Wonderful examples of early, turn of the century Chicago industrial architecture. They have been largely and remain largely occupied, but there is growing threat as to these buildings as some of the traditional manufacturing tenants and users are closing for one reason or another. Wheatland has recently closed, and we believe that building is currently in demolition. We're not sure the exact status, but that appears to be the circumstance. There are many of them. This district has been largely overlooked. Part of the reason we made it a Chicago 7 most endangered these here in 2025 was to raise awareness about the integrity and significance of these buildings. And we would certainly love for the city to consider a landmark designation to help to stabilize and protect these buildings, help to encourage the smaller manufacturers to stay put. And also for other manufacturers who have been displaced, we've seen a lot of larger manufacturing buildings shuttered and all the longtime manufacturing tenants displaced as those buildings are demolished and replaced with sort of cross Amazon style cross dock shipping transit hubs. And it's very, very hard for these well-established local manufacturing companies to find new facilities in the city of Chicago, which is very, very important for our manufacturing base. We believe smaller scale buildings like these, because they're less attractive to the big box sort of cross dock developers, would be perfect. But again, the individual manufacturers can't develop. So landmark designation to sort of begin to sort of stabilize these districts would be a great help, both on the architectural side, but also on the long-term stability and vibrancy of these neighborhoods and the manufacturing base.
Thank you. And the last one is Roger Brown Study Collection, 1926 North Halsted, presented by Landmarks, Illinois, Frank Butterfield.
Yes, Chairman, committee members, commission staff, thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. My name is Frank Butterfield. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Landmarks, Illinois. And on behalf of Landmarks, Illinois, I present for the program committee's consideration a nomination for 1926 North Halsted, the Roger Brown Study Collection. So constructed in 1888, the building's significance really derives from its later association with artist Roger Brown and the Chicago Imagist art movement. Roger Brown lived and worked at this address from 1974 to 1995, along with his partner George Veranda, who passed away in 1984. Until last year, the building and the collection that it housed was maintained by owner, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, as a house museum and a learning lab. SAIC recently sold the collection to the Kohler Foundation and has listed the property for sale. The Roger Brown Study Collection building was individually listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 2011 because of its association with Roger Brown. At that time, its association with Roger Brown was less than 50 years old, which typically you can't put something in the National Register under 50 years, but it was listed because it met the criteria for exceptional significance. We have the author of that nomination, Susanna Ribstein, here today to answer any questions if there are any. It's also in the Sheffield National Register Historic District. The building is not orange rated and will not benefit from demolition delay if a demolition permit is filed. Without local landmark designation, it has no protection against demolition by a new owner. Landmarks Illinois has previously called attention to the high rate of demolition in this area of Chicago, including listing the Sheffield National Register District in our most endangered historic places in 2019. As the home and studio of Roger Brown, 1926 North Halsted is connected to the Chicago Imagist art movement. The term Imagist was coined by Chicago art critic Fran Schultz in 1959 essay, but ultimately became most associated with a generation of artists who came up around 1970, including Roger Brown. Don Baum, the director of exhibitions for the Hyde Park Art Center, was well known for his support of the Imagists and organized many exhibitions of the work of these artists as their careers emerged. In 1969, Baum curated the exhibition Don Baum Says, Chicago Needs Famous Artists at the Museum of Contemporary Art, a key exhibition of Imagist work. Imagists have no clear common style, but are defined by their common rejection of minimalism and abstract impressionism, and their embrace of imagery and surrealism. Imagism established a unique identity for Chicago in the world of contemporary art, distinct from the dominant art culture of New York City. Appreciation for the talent and impact of the Chicago images continues to grow. 1926 North Halsted is additionally significant because it is the most intact historic building and site related to the Images School of Art. The imagist and leader of the Chicago Imagist movement, Roger Brown, lived and worked at 1926 North Halsted from 1974 until 1995 during most of his mature career. Brown and his partner, architect George Veranda, preserved significant historic features on the exterior of the building while extensively remodeling the home's interior to better accommodate Brown's professional needs. Brown also designed the garage at the rear of the property. Many of Brown's most important works were created at this studio. Brown was also a prolific collector of art and objects that he displayed in the space. Brown's significance as an artist is widely recognized. His work can be found in the collections of major museums across the world, including the Art Institute of Chicago, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, and the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and many others. Roger Brown was posthumously inducted into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame in 2004. Pictured here are two examples of Roger Brown's work. There we go. Clearly demonstrating his style, his interest in depicting architecture and urban landscapes with clear human figures, and the direct inspiration of his home in Chicago. Go ahead. Next slide. 1926 North Halsted has excellent integrity, appearing largely as it did at the time that Roger Brown lived and worked there. The School of the Art Institute made some modifications to accommodate its later use as a teaching space. Next slide. Roger Brown's collection, which was closely tied to the space that inhabited within his home and studio, is no longer present in the building. The collection is no longer there. SAIC recently sold the collection to the Kohler Foundation. Nevertheless, the physical form of the building is substantially the same as it was during his ownership. We understand that the commission had received several letters of support for the landmark designation of this building, and we have representatives here from Preservation Chicago. I mentioned Susanna is a subject matter expert, having written the National Register nomination, and Bridget Doherty here is a former neighbor of Brown's and
Branch, the neighborhood community that wants to support the landmark.
So we encourage you to move forward as quickly as possible with designating this irreplaceable treasure a Chicago landmark. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your suggestions and for taking the time to share your thoughts and information with us. All of the suggestions will now be given to Historic Preservation Division staff for further review. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for attending.
Wait around. The Kohler Art, I'm not exactly sure if they're long-term plan for it, but they are curating the.
And how are they gonna keep that? Are they gonna like?
I don't know, like, yeah, but I